Okay, Michael Church here with Michael Kushler, and I'm going to talk to him today. He's done his own crawl space. He's one of the DIY ninjas out there. We appreciate you coming, Michael. And just so you know, that is not a picture of his background, of his crawl space behind him. He's literally in his crawl space right now.
Bought a battery backup, which I can say paid for itself immediately. We had a power outage when that battery backup was going off. That was really good.
Let's move on. I see that's not an April air dehue behind you. What do you got? What do you got burning and churning back there?
It is not yet an April air. This is an Allure air that
not to
I
call
got
you
off
out.
of Amazon.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you out.
I thought that might come up. No, I was shopping around on Amazon. This was admittedly, I think, before I discovered and did a real deep dive into your page and all of your content as well. Think it's a similar type of model, but not the same brand name. We'll see how long it lasts. I have faith, and they've got a warranty on it. But the April Air might be the next one we pick up.
Well, and I kid around. I used to use Santa Fe, and we just had some issues with them, and so their warranty wasn't what we wanted for our company and everything. But as long as you got a dehumidifier, right? Get what you can afford. And then if you need to save up or whatever, but a dehumidifier, as long as it's controlling humidity, that's the most important part. Everybody goes into reasons why you should buy an April Air or a Santa Fe or whatever, but just make sure you get one. That's the whole point, right? I mean, get what you can afford, get what you like. You got a pretty tall crawl space. You could probably even have a stand-up freestanding unit in that crawl space. It's so tall, but some of us that have shorter crawl spaces, we need something more like that one where it lays flat and blows, across. So how long have you had that machine?
It's been about 1.5 years now. So it's been working well. And what I like about it too is that it comes with like a separate readout that I can keep in the main home and monitor the humidity level that way.
That's a good point. So that way you and your family can see what the humidity is in the crawl space year round. It's not as much as an alarm per se, like your sump pump, but you can look over and every day, if you have it in the kitchen or whatever, you can make sure the humidity down there is in good shape, right?
That's right. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So why spend all that money if you're not going to monitor the situation? It's very important. So how long? So you said you had that 1.5 years. I assume that was done before the encapsulation. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
First thing,
So it was able to control humidity even before, or is that right?
It was. We had an encapsulation that was existing. It just wasn't super well done, and the plastic was getting old and starting to really show wear and tear in a number of places.
Right.
So that it controlled the humidity down to about 45 to 50 where we wanted it, but it seemed like it was running a lot, especially very, very few times when it wasn't running to keep it at that humidity level.
So then you decided to do a full-blown encapsulation, overlap and taping the seams, all that normal stuff that we would do. And then what kind of run time are you seeing now with the dehu?
Yeah, in the summer, so we finished up the encapsulation. It was still pretty warm, consistently in the 70s and 80s here. Mm-hmm. And it was running, in any given hour, maybe 10 minutes or so.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's fantastic. And before it was running, you said constantly, but give me an idea. Was it running a couple of hours and then turning off, or was it running all day, or what was it doing before?
It was running pretty much all day. It was sort of like the inverse. Now it might run 10 to 15 minutes in a given hour.
Right.
And before it was not running for 10 minutes in a given hour.
Wow. Okay. So, and if you think about it, these dehus, they're about like refrigerators, right? So they use about as much power as a refrigerator. Could you imagine your refrigerator running, 50 minutes out of the hour versus 10 minutes out of the hour, which is why the plastic is so important. Were you ground only plastic, or were you up on the wall prior to encapsulation?
Prior, it was ground only.
Ground only. Okay. So that's another reason why we encourage the wall plastic, is especially somebody like you that's taken on a lot of flooding. Are you cinder block? Is that right? Or block?
Cinder block. That's right.
Okay. So block walls are holding water, and then that water is going to evaporate inside. So that plastic being up the wall is going to slow that evaporation. Therefore, your dehu doesn't have to run as hard. So that's great that you did that. And you said you had mold. How did you address the mold?
We bought some commercial mold killer. I did some spraying first to kill it. I then did the
Uh-huh.
physical remover. I did, got in all the nooks and crannies and sanded with power tools when I could, or just got in there with some sandpaper and made sure that I sanded it completely down, and then did a respray after that as a preventative measure.
That's very good. So you actually got in and sanded the wood to physically remove it.
That's right.
That's great. That's great. So it looks pretty clean back there. Was that behind you part of what was affected by the mold?
Yeah, I'd say to be on the safe side, I sanded almost every single one of the joists here. But I was seeing them particularly as you get into the rim joist, like as you get around the band board
Right.
behind some of the existing bat insulation that was there. That was the biggest cleanup job.
So could you see the mold in the joist below the bat insulation that was growing on the tips of the wood before you took the insulation out?
Not around the band board so much, but there was, I remember a video that you said where you recommended take a flashlight and shine it along the joists and see.
Right.
And so I was seeing a lot of like that kind of white glow. So I knew that there was no black mold growing there, but something was growing, and I wanted to make sure I got rid of it all.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Thanks for bringing that up. So you take your flashlight and you run it down the beam, and then it kind of shows the rays of whatever's growing, and you said you particularly saw white discoloration on the wood.
That's right.
Is that right? So when you shined it straight on, you didn't see that. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's amazing. You know where I got that from? CSI. I used to watch CSI and they'd like take their flashlight and run it down the wall, and I'm like, I'll try that. So I did that, and I saw mold that I didn't see before hidden straight on. So that was anyway. Thank you, CSI. Appreciate that.
Well, that's what I felt this was like with this crawl space project. You think you have one set of things to do, and then the further you look into it, it's just more and more of a mystery.
That's right. Now, did you insulate? I can't see. Did you do wall insulation? Is that right?
I did. I ended up getting the combination vapor barrier and insulation that you guys have on your DIY store.
Oh, cool. Cool. How was the install on that? Was it hard or easy? What would you say?
It was pretty relatively easy. I did a lot of it myself. So, you have a video where you talk about the insulation and recommend that, it's an R8 as it exists.
Right.
You can kick it up to an R12 if you install fur strips. So that was probably the thing that took me the longest over a number of weekends, just making sure I cleaned everything up, installed the fur strips. And then when it came to putting up the actual insulation itself, that was pretty easy, just quick drill, Christmas tree fastener. And then because I have a radon mitigation system here, I used polyurethane caulk all along the inside to air seal it as well.
Across the top?
Across the top and inside the lip too, just to be on the safe side.
Yeah, and for those of you that aren't familiar, it's called Insel Barrier, and it's a fairly new product that's hit the market, maybe a year or two old, and we like it because in a situation, especially a DIY situation, it's just a continuation of the vapor barrier. So what it is I think it's R8.7 or something like that. But if you create an air gap with a first strip per the manufacturer, like he's talking about, it adds R value to it, and I think it'll go up to R12 at 3/4 inch. Is that about what you did? 3/4 inch first strip,
right? Exactly.
Right. So that way you're even doing better than our R10 foam board if you do the first strip. And how far apart were you? 24 inch on center, or were you closer?
Oh yeah, at least 24 inches for the overlap.
So you do basically a first strip from. Did you go top to bottom, or did you just go continuously all the way across?
Top to bottom. Bunch of
top to
vertical strips.
So if you've got 3.5, 4 foot wall, you just cut them in half and you put the first strip on. Did you use like a cut nail, like one of those cut nails to put the first strip on, or did you glue it?
It was concrete screws.
Oh, okay. Okay, so you drilled in and then use a Tapcon or a masonry screw or something.
Tapcon, like exactly.
Yeah, very good, very good. And then you drilled again, and then you put the Christmas tree to hold the vapor barrier up.
Exactly.
Right. How did it look is that our vapor barrier on our DIY store also, or is that a different kind?
Yes, this is your 12 mil vapor barrier. That you can see on the column.
Did they come together pretty good, the Insel Barrier and our vapor barrier?
Yeah, really well. And I just made sure I brought the vapor barrier on the floor up over a foot, and then made sure that I taped that really well. and it looks great, looks totally seamless, and it's helpful.
So you brought the floor plastic up on the wall Insel Barrier, right? And then that's where your seam tape is. Is that correct?
Exactly.
And then you're what, maybe another 4 or 5 feet before your next seam out off the wall, or is it further than that?
The seam,
like on the floor. Where's your next? Is your floor seam pretty close to the wall, or did you go as far away from the wall as you could for your next?
Yeah, I took the seams. The floor seam is the strips basically go along the floor of the crawl space, so it's seamed up on the walls, and then like right down the middle of the crawl space on the floor.
Very good, very good. And the reason why I bring that up, Michael, is because that seam is where the water, the flooding intrusion is going to happen. So you want to make sure that you get that seam as far away from the foundation wall as possible. And it sounds like you did a great job doing that. So you got it up the wall, so you're not going to flood there. And then you've got the other seam close to the center of the crawl space. So that water has to travel a long ways to break through the plastic, right? So wow, it sounds like you need to open a crawl space ninja franchise in Virginia, right? I mean, you're ready.
Yeah, I see you guys are looking for market there. I was telling my wife, if I only had the time or the capital.
Is that felt? Did you put felt down too?
Yeah, that's one of the things that was pretty unique versus what I saw, in all of your videos, is that I ended up getting the felt 550. And a lot of folks put it so we've got a dimpled underlayment, then I've got a couple of layers of your 12 mil vapor barrier on the floor. And then a lot of folks put the felt 550 down under the vapor barrier, but I decided, hey, let's make it more like a carpet because we want to have storage and we're going to be moving boxes around and things like that.
I got you. So you're using the felt to protect the top of the plastic so that you can store things on it. Is that right?
That's right.
That is very smart. That is very smart. I like that. So, that's just for you all, felt 550 is basically just a brand of felt. It's pretty much like a landscape fabric. The stuff you would get at Home Depot, some of it's plastic. What he used is more of a cloth kind of material. It's a little bit more durable and thick and all that. If you go to a landscape, like a company that sells primarily to landscapers, they do huge rolls of it, like 3,000 square feet, or you can get a couple of hundred square feet at the box stores. But that, you probably ordered that online from another company. Is that right? Is that how you got that?
Found it online. It was about 400 square feet, and the strips were only about 10 feet long. So we ended up running the whole thing through my wife's sewing machine and just putting.
Oh, so you sewed it together?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. I never thought about that. That's a good idea. And you put Dimpl under the plastic.
That's right.
So Dimpl, a couple of layers. So you got a Dimpl 24 mil plastic, and then
24 mil, and then felt on top of it.
Man, you can have a slumber party down there. I bet you that stuff feels good on your knees crawling around, doesn't it?
It's amazing. I tell you, that was the turning point in the DIY project when I got the dimpled underlayment down, and I was actually able to crawl in my crawl space rather than hunch over the entire time.
You weren't dreading the day as much after that, right? So, but it also looks like you used a foam board and spray foam to do your rim joists. Is that correct?
I did. Yeah, I used an EPS foam board versus an XPS. I remember seeing a video that you might have posted somewhere for the viewers that talks about the pros and the cons of each. EPS, as I understand it, is a little bit more permeable and can let some water evaporate out. I was worried about having, when I pulled the bad insulation out and saw some mold in there, I was worrying about having a repeat problem where moisture would get trapped in there. So I wanted an option that would allow it to breathe a little bit more.
Right, that's good. And I got a picture here, and I'm going to put these pictures throughout the video, everybody, just so you can see them. But here is the Insul Barrier. It looks like is that a 3-inch termite gap? Is that right?
It is. So I checked the Virginia code. I remember you had a Ask a Ninja question about somebody from James City County near Williamsburg, Virginia, asking about that question. So I found that same document that you had pulled, and I found the Virginia code as well. It's the same thing. They ask for at least 1 inch, but no greater than 2 inch. I did 3 inch just to be on the safe side.
Gotcha. So, and every state's different. That's why you got to check. Like in Georgia, it's a minimum of 6 inches. So it just depends on where you're operating and all that sort of thing. But what you're looking at here, viewers, is that he's got the Insel Barrier. He's got the Christmas tree fastener attaching the Insel Barrier, which is holding up really nice. Then he used foam board, an EPS foam board with a spray foam. And the reason why EPS is better, he said something that may throw a lot of people off, where it allows moisture to pass through it. Okay, that's what makes it live longer. If you have an XPS like the pink or blue that you find at Home Depot or Lowe's, it does not allow moisture to pass through, and the R value degrades faster. As a matter of fact, a lot of what I've read is that you're not supposed to use an XPS near the foundation. It's basically for above the crawl space all the way up to the attic. You can use it anywhere else but in a wet area. So that's what he's talking about, the EPS versus the XPS. And it looks fantastic. You did a great job. Great job. How difficult was it to sand around all those nails sticking through in the boot? I bet you that was pretty tough, wasn't it?
That was tough. That was the thing about this DIY project, I would say, is that I took care of what was, the most urgent in terms of solving mold and water remediation.
Right.
But, the whole project this is only a 425-foot crawl space. It took me about 4 months, start to finish, to do everything. I had a week of vacation where I then did the bulk of the work with changing out the vapor barrier, laying all of that out. But doing the rim joists, the sanding, the wall insulation, all of that was just, when I had time on the weekends.
Sure. And I'm sure, that's the thing. Did you do it all by yourself? Did you have any help at all?
My wife helped me when we were doing all the seam taping, so we found that was much easier with two people. But other than that, it was all by myself with a lot of help from you guys on how to do it.
Well, great. Well, thank you for saying that. I'm glad these videos are able to help you and others out there. We would love it if you would hire us, if everybody in America would hire us to fix their crawl space. But we just understand that there's some people that want to tackle this on their own for whatever reason, whether it's to save money or just a sense of accomplishment of getting it done, or both. Right. So I appreciate you coming on and all of this. Let me see if there's any other pictures. This looks really great, Michael. You did a fantastic job, and I'm going to show these befores too. And you had a nasty crawl space. I'm looking at the one. It looks like one of your kids' sliding toys is in the picture. That's yep. Did you have mold on that? Was there mold on it?
Not at that time, no. Although when I came back to really start the job in earnest, we saw some mold growing on like the radon mitigation pipes and other places like that as well. So other pieces of plastic that were starting to get mold forming on them.
Was the radon mitigation system installed before your encapsulation, or was it installed before the sump pump, or where in the timeline was that put in?
That I'm not sure, because when we bought the house, it came as
already part of it.
That's right.
Okay. So they used a black plastic, what we call a builder grade plastic. And did they use like a caulk to attach that black plastic to the foundation wall for the radon? Is that what they used, like polyurethane?
Yeah, they used a polyurethane, and they had like wooden strips along the bottom of the foundation walls.
Right.
Wrapped the plastic around that, nailed it with a Hilti gun.
And then attached it that way. I got you. Yeah. And then I assume they overlap and tape the seams throughout the crawl space as well. Is that correct?
That's right. Although, when I started digging down into it, it seemed like this was like layer 3, where the plastic was just worse and worse the further down you got.
Right.
And so they had just, whatever somebody had done previously, they were now doing it in a more thorough way, but still, it still wasn't in great shape. But they really just laid it down on top of the existing plastic.
So you had 2 or 3 layers, and the radon system was put on top of those other layers. Is that right?
That's right.
That's right. Okay. So, and they slink the black pipe through. Is that correct? Like a corrugated pipe?
That's right.
Or it's a corrugated perforated pipe, not a. And then that goes. The radon fan is outside the foundation and then goes up and over the gutters. Is that also correct?
Our radon system goes up through. So our crawl space is above the main living space of the house and accessible from inside the house. And the radon mitigation system goes up through a closet and up through a roof, and the fan is up in the attic.
So all the way through the attic, which is ideal. So your fan is in the attic then, is that correct?
That's right.
Yeah. One quick tip for everybody, if you're planning on doing your own radon system, never put the radon fan in the crawl space. It has to be either to the outside of the house on the sides or in the attic. Those are really the only acceptable places. You never put the fan in your basement, in the living space, or in the crawl space. Because if for some reason those 3 or 4 inch pipes disconnect or have a leak, all of that radon is leaking at a much higher rate because those fans are a couple hundred CFM. So you don't want that to happen. So that's why his is in the attic. A lot of newer homes that are being built today, they pre-plumb them with the radon stacks in the attic, and then that way the homeowner can have the fans, at least around here. So that's great. So you took out all the old plastic, is that right? Disconnected those first strips, and then did all the new plastic, and then you overlapped and taped with the polyurethane. Have you checked your radon level since you got done?
I need to check the radon level. It was still pretty low when we did the initial inspection and bought the house, but
Right.
I need to do another check on it. I can tell, you have that U-shaped suction tube that shows you, what your negative pressure is. That's
Right.
running really well. More suction than we had before.
That's great. That's great. That's an indicator. For those of you that don't know how radon systems work, you have this little liquid-filled tube, and the liquid needs to be higher on one side than the other, and that's how you know that you got a vacuum, basically. So obviously the radon system is working, or you wouldn't have. If it's level, then you don't have a vacuum. So that's why that tube is so important. Well, man, I'm telling you, Michael, you did a fantastic job, and I really appreciate you coming on. Tell us, would you do it again?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I want to say too, thank you so much for, that high praise coming from you and your company, Michael. You guys do such fantastic work, and really am so appreciative for the amount of content that you put out there to make this possible. It was, I will say for the viewers out there, I mean, I don't have a background in construction. I work a desk job. I have a pretty small crawl space, and it definitely got tough, right? In the week when I was constantly down here about 8 hours a day. But absolutely doable, and super glad I did it. Would totally do it again.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you. And you did such a fantastic job. You got the wall insulation, you got the rim joist, you took care of the mold, you're controlling humidity. It sounds like you just made a much healthier environment for you and your family. So congratulations on that. And thank you again for sharing all of your information. Do you mind if I put these pictures on the website so people can just look at them? Is that okay?
Not at all. Please do.
Before I stop recording, hope you make it a happy and blessed day, and like this video down below, and we'll see you later.